In the cold, sterile corridors of Starbridge Interstellar Corporation's main research facility, Hannah Kim stood quietly, her dark eyes scanning the complex monitoring screens. The soft hum of machinery filled the air, masking the tension that had been building for months. She was different from other engineers, meticulous, observant, and unwilling to let dangerous practices slide. The mining operations in the distant Proxima sector had been troubling her. Radiation levels were consistently higher than reported, equipment maintenance logs showed repeated overlooks, and worker safety reports were suspiciously sanitized. Hannah knew something was wrong, and she was determined to uncover the truth. Her colleague Jod Park noticed her intense concentration. "What are you looking at?" he asked, approaching her workstation. Hannah wordlessly pointed to a series of graphs and technical readings that told a story of systematic negligence. "These radiation exposure levels are not just high, they're potentially fatal," she whispered, her fingers quickly extracting data and creating cross-referenced reports. The corporation's standard protective gear was inadequate, and workers, human and alien alike, were being put at extreme risk. Starbridge's corporate culture was built on efficiency and profit. Safety was always a secondary consideration, something to be managed with minimal investment. Hannah had seen workers return from deep space missions with unexplained health issues, their bodies marked by invisible radiation damage. Her investigation wasn't just professional, it was personal. Her uncle had died years ago from complications related to a mining accident, a tragedy that had shaped her entire career. She wasn't going to let the same happen to others. Director Kim Dong-woo, a seasoned corporate executive with a reputation for ruthlessness, managed the company's operations. When Hannah first approached him with her findings, he dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. "The data is within acceptable parameters," he stated coldly. But Hannah knew the numbers told a different story. She began collecting evidence, meticulously documenting every discrepancy. Digital logs, maintenance records, worker health reports. She compiled everything with surgical precision. The mining outposts were located in some of the most challenging environments imaginable. Asteroids rich with rare minerals orbited unstable stars, and workers spent months in conditions that tested the limits of human endurance. The protective systems were meant to shield them from extreme radiation and potential meteorite impacts, but Hannah's research revealed critical weaknesses. Her initial report was comprehensive. She demonstrated how cost-cutting measures had systematically compromised safety protocols. Communication systems were outdated, emergency evacuation mechanisms were poorly maintained, and radiation shielding was substandard. J. Park supported her quietly, providing technical expertise and helping her validate her findings. Together, they represented a small but formidable force of truth-seekers within the massive corporate structure. The workers in the Proxima sector had no idea how close they were to potential disaster. Some had already experienced health complications, strange cellular mutations, unexplained fatigue, and increased cancer risks. But the corporation had always managed to suppress such information, burying reports and offering minimal compensation. Hannah knew that taking on Starbridge would be dangerous. Corporate retaliation was a real possibility. Her career, her reputation, her future, everything could be at risk. But she also understood that remaining silent would mean condemning countless workers to potential death. As she finalized her documentation, she felt a mix of determination and fear. The evidence was clear, the risks were documented, and the potential for catastrophic failure was very real. She would need to be strategic, careful, and absolutely certain of her approach. Her next step would be to file an official complaint, a move that would inevitably trigger a massive corporate response. Starbridge was not an organization that welcomed internal criticism, especially from a junior engineer who dared to challenge their established practices. The fluorescent lights of the research facility cast a harsh glow on her determined face. Hannah Kim was about to become more than just an engineer. She was about to become a whistleblower who would challenge an entire system of corporate indifference. Little did she know, her decision would soon spark a revolution that would reshape workplace safety across multiple star systems. The moment Hannah submitted her detailed report, the corporate machinery began to move. Director Kim Dong-woo's response was swift and calculated. Instead of addressing the safety concerns, he chose to neutralize the threat. Hannah herself. 3 days after her report, she received an official transfer notice. The destination was the Epsilon 9 mining outpost, a notorious location known among workers as the Dead Zone. Located in the most unstable region of the Proxima sector, this outpost had the highest worker mortality rate in the entire Starbridge network. Jay Park warned her privately. "They're trying to break you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper in the company's crowded break room. "This transfer is a punishment, not a genuine work assignment." The Epsilon 9 outpost was more than just a dangerous workplace. It was a calculated attempt to silence her. Radiation levels were consistently 300% higher than standard safety limits. Equipment maintenance was minimal, and worker protection was nearly non-existent. Workers who survived more than 6 months were considered lucky. Hannah understood the message. Starbridge wasn't just transferring her. They were sending her to a potential death sentence. Her documentation and concerns would be buried under the harsh realities of deep space mining. Her initial protests were met with bureaucratic indifference. Human Resources Representative Lee Min-ju provided rehearsed responses, each sentence carefully constructed to avoid direct accountability. "Your skills are required at the Epsilon 9 location," she repeated mechanically during their meeting. But Hannah was not easily intimidated. She began documenting her transfer, recording every communication, preserving every email and message. If Starbridge wanted to play a game of corporate warfare, she was prepared to fight back. The transfer logistics were designed to isolate her. Her communication channels would be limited, her access to external networks restricted. The Epsilon 9 outpost was essentially a corporate black site where inconvenient employees disappeared. Workers who had previously been stationed at Epsilon 9 shared horror stories. Unexplained equipment failures, sudden radiation spikes, and mysterious worker disappearances were common. The outpost was more like a death trap than a mining facility. Joe continued supporting her behind the scenes. He helped her prepare emergency communication protocols and backup documentation. If something happened to her at Epsilon 9, the evidence would be preserved and potentially released. Starbridge's strategy was clear: discredit her professionally, isolate her physically, and ensure her safety concerns would never see the light of day. By sending her to the most dangerous outpost, they calculated she would either be silenced permanently or become too traumatized to continue her fight. The day of her departure arrived quickly. Minimal luggage, restricted communication devices, and a one-way ticket to the most dangerous mining location in the corporate network. Around her, other employees watched silently, understanding the unspoken message. During her pre-departure medical examination, Hannah noticed subtle attempts to manipulate her medical records. Radiation tolerance levels were being artificially adjusted, creating a false narrative of her fitness for the assignment. Her resolve hardened with each passing moment. What started as a workplace safety investigation was now transforming into a full-scale battle against corporate corruption. Starbridge had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated her determination. As her transport prepared for departure, Hannah reviewed her compiled evidence one last time. Radiation reports, maintenance logs, worker health records, a comprehensive documentation of corporate negligence. Even if she didn't return, these documents would tell her story. The transport's engines hummed to life. Outside the small window, the familiar corporate landscape of Starbridge headquarters gradually disappeared. Ahead lay the unknown dangers of Epsilon 9, a location designed to break her spirit. But Hannah Kim was not breaking. She was preparing for war. Her quiet determination burned brighter than the distant stars outside her transport window. Starbridge might have designed this transfer as a punishment, but for her, it was just the beginning of a much larger fight. The journey to Epsilon 9 had begun. As Hannah's transport approached the Epsilon 9 outpost, something unexpected was brewing across the galaxy. Her meticulously documented evidence had begun to circulate through underground communication networks, reaching far beyond Starbridge's control. The first unexpected ally emerged from an unlikely source. Kiro, a veteran alien worker from the Orion Confederation, had been monitoring communication channels. His species, known for their advanced technological understanding, quickly recognized the depth of Hannah's documentation. Kiro understood corporate manipulation intimately. His own people had suffered similar workplace abuses for generations. He began sharing Hannah's reports through encrypted networks, connecting workers from different planetary systems who had experienced similar exploitation. Within days, a digital network of support began to form. Workers from 12 different alien species started comparing their own workplace experiences with the evidence Hannah had uncovered. What seemed like isolated incidents were now revealing a systematic pattern of corporate abuse. On the mining station, Hannah quickly realized the environment was even worse than reported. Radiation shields were failing, equipment maintenance was minimal, and worker safety was purely a theoretical concept. Each day became a battle for survival. Back on the communication networks, Jay Park played a crucial role. Using his technical skills, he helped create secure communication channels that could bypass corporate monitoring. He understood that information was the most powerful weapon against corporate oppression. An unexpected breakthrough came from an alien legal expert named Ren, who specialized in interstellar worker rights. Ren's analysis of Hannah's documentation revealed multiple violations of galactic labor regulations. What started as a single complaint was transforming into a potential systemic challenge. The corporate response was predictable. Starbridge attempted to block communication channels, discredit the emerging network, and isolate potential whistleblowers. But the network had grown too complex, too interconnected to be easily dismantled. Workers from different planets began sharing their stories. A mining engineer from a methane-based planet described similar safety violations. A maintenance worker from a gaseous planetary system confirmed equipment manipulation techniques. Each story added weight to Hannah's original documentation. Kiro's network developed a sophisticated information-sharing strategy. They created encrypted databases, developed secure communication protocols, and began building a comprehensive case against corporate misconduct. Hannah's initial report was now becoming a galactic movement. The alien legal expert, Ren, started preparing a comprehensive legal challenge. By connecting multiple incident reports, they were building a case that transcended individual corporate boundaries. Starbridge's practices were now under serious examination. Hannah, isolated on the Epsilon 9 station, continued her documentation. Despite harsh conditions, limited resources, and constant surveillance, she maintained her meticulous approach. Every radiation reading, every equipment failure, every worker interaction became part of her growing evidence. The corporate leadership began to realize the situation was spiraling beyond their control. What was meant to be a simple punishment was transforming into a potential galactic-level investigation. Hannah had become more than an individual worker. She was now a symbol of resistance. Joe continued supporting her from the main facility, finding creative ways to ensure her documentation could be preserved and transmitted. He understood the risks but believed in the importance of their mission. The network of support grew exponentially. What began as a small group of concerned workers was now a complex, interconnected movement spanning multiple planetary systems. They shared resources, protected each other's identities, and systematically challenged corporate narratives. Ren's legal team began preparing formal charges. The documentation was comprehensive, the evidence overwhelming. Starbridge's practices were not just unethical, they were potentially criminal on an interstellar scale. As radiation warnings blared periodically in the Epsilon 9 station, Hannah remained focused. She understood that her survival, her documentation, and her resistance were now part of something much larger than herself. The corporate war had entered a new phase. And nobody, not Starbridge, not the directors, not the established power structures, had anticipated the revolution that was about to unfold. The galactic media storm erupted without warning. Hannah's documented evidence, carefully curated and strategically leaked, landed like a digital bomb across multiple communication networks. What started as a workplace safety complaint was now a full-scale corporate exposure event. Starbridge's leadership panicked. Director Kim Dong-woo called emergency meetings, desperately trying to contain the spreading information. But the network of workers, now connected across planetary systems, had become too powerful to silence. Ren, the alien legal expert, began presenting the comprehensive case. Decades of corporate records revealed a systematic pattern of worker exploitation. Radiation exposure reports, equipment maintenance logs, and hidden medical records told a story of calculated human and alien worker endangerment. The Epsilon 9 station became the central focal point of the investigation. Hannah's continuous documentation provided irrefutable evidence of workplace conditions that bordered on criminal negligence. Every radiation reading, every equipment failure became a critical piece of the growing legal puzzle. Jodpark's technical expertise proved crucial. He had created backup systems that protected the documentation, ensuring that even if Starbridge attempted to destroy evidence, the truth would survive. Multiple encrypted servers around different planetary systems now held copies of the complete investigation. Unexpected allies emerged from within Starbridge itself. Internal whistleblowers, inspired by Hannah's courage, began providing additional documentation. Years of suppressed reports, hidden medical records, and concealed safety violations came to light. The economic implications were massive. Starbridge's stock prices began to plummet as the investigation gained momentum. Investors realized the company had been building its profits on a foundation of worker exploitation and systematic deception. Kiro's network of alien workers played a critical role in spreading the information. They used advanced communication technologies to ensure the documentation reached every possible regulatory body and media outlet across multiple star systems. Detailed revelations shocked the galactic community. The documentation showed that Starbridge had been deliberately underreporting radiation exposure, manipulating medical records, and creating false safety certifications. The scale of the deception was unprecedented. Legal teams from multiple planetary systems began preparing comprehensive charges. What had started as Hannah's individual complaint was now a massive interstellar investigation that threatened to dismantle an entire corporate structure. The Epsilon 9 station became a symbol of corporate corruption. Workers who had previously been silenced now found their voices. Medical records revealed long-term health impacts that had been deliberately hidden from public knowledge. Director Kim Dong-woo's attempts to control the narrative failed spectacularly. Each attempt to defend the corporation only revealed more layers of systematic corruption. Press conferences became opportunities for further exposure of the company's unethical practices. Hannah continued her work from the station, knowing that every additional piece of documentation added weight to the growing case. Her initial transfer, meant to silence her, had instead provided her with the most comprehensive evidence possible. The network of support grew stronger. Workers from different species shared their experiences, creating a unified front against corporate exploitation. What seemed like isolated incidents were now revealed as a systematic approach to worker endangerment. Ren's legal team began preparing the most comprehensive corporate lawsuit in galactic history. The documentation was overwhelming. Years of concealed safety violations, manipulated medical records, and deliberate worker endangerment. Starbridge's leadership realized they were facing more than just a legal challenge. The entire corporate structure was about to be dismantled. Years of carefully constructed deception were crumbling under the weight of documented evidence. The galactic regulatory bodies began mobilizing. What had started as a single complaint was now a full-scale investigation that would reshape interstellar corporate practices forever. Hannah understood the significance of the moment. From a single engineer on a dangerous mining station, she had become the catalyst for a revolution that would change worker rights across multiple planetary systems. The final act was about to begin. Starbridge's fate hung in the balance, and the truth was finally coming to light. The final hearing began in the Galactic Judicial Center. a massive structure orbiting a neutral planetary system. Hannah sat quietly, surrounded by representatives from dozens of alien species and worker protection agencies. Starbridge's entire corporate leadership had been dismantled. Director Kim Dong-woo and his top executives were facing criminal charges that would permanently remove them from any corporate leadership positions. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. Ren presented the final case, a comprehensive documentation of systematic worker exploitation that spanned decades. The courtroom listened in stunned silence as years of corporate corruption were laid bare. Each revelation brought audible gasps from the assembled representatives. The economic impact was immediate. Starbridge's entire corporate structure collapsed within hours of the hearing's initial presentations. Regulatory bodies from multiple star systems began implementing new worker protection laws, directly inspired by Hannah's original documentation. Jay Park had become a key technical witness, explaining how the documentation was collected and preserved. His testimony revealed the sophisticated network of communication and evidence collection that had made the entire case possible. Kiro, the alien worker who first helped spread the information, was recognized as a critical ally in the investigation. His understanding of interstellar communication networks had been crucial in protecting and distributing the evidence. The transformation wasn't just legal, it was cultural. Workers across the galaxy now understood they had the power to challenge corporate misconduct. Hannah had become a symbol of resistance, her story taught in educational institutions across multiple planetary systems. Medical investigations revealed the true extent of worker damage. Thousands of workers from different species would receive compensation and long-term medical support. The documentation Hannah collected had quite literally saved countless lives. Interstellar worker protection laws were completely rewritten. New regulations required transparent safety reporting, independent medical investigations, and severe penalties for corporate misconduct. The changes were comprehensive and far-reaching. Hannah received multiple awards, though she remained humble. Her focus was never on personal recognition, but on systemic change. The Epsilon 9 station, where she had been sent to be silenced, was converted into a worker safety research center. The economic ripple effects were significant. Corporations across the galaxy were forced to implement comprehensive safety protocols. Worker protection became a primary consideration, not an afterthought. Jay and Kiro continued working to support workers' rights, building on the foundation Hannah had established. They created a global network dedicated to monitoring workplace safety and supporting potential whistleblowers. Educational institutions began developing new courses focused on corporate accountability and worker rights. Hannah's documentation became a primary case study in understanding systemic corporate misconduct. The transformation extended beyond Starbridge. Other corporations began voluntarily implementing stronger safety protocols, understanding the potential consequences of workplace negligence. Multiple planetary governments established independent worker protection agencies. These new organizations had real power to investigate and prevent workplace exploitation. Hannah's original documentation became a historical document, studied and respected across multiple star systems. What had begun as a personal investigation had transformed into a galactic movement for worker rights. The medical community developed new protocols for tracking long-term workplace health impacts. The comprehensive data Hannah collected became a crucial resource for understanding industrial health risks. Technological innovations emerged from the investigation. New safety monitoring systems were developed, directly inspired by the documentation that exposed Starbridge's misconduct. The story became more than a legal case. It was a testament to individual courage, the power of documentation, and the possibility of systemic change. Years later, workers across the galaxy would still speak about Hannah Kim, the engineer who challenged a corrupt system and won. Her legacy was not just in the laws that change, but in the culture of accountability she helped create. The final transformation was complete. What began as a single complaint had reshaped how corporations viewed their responsibility to workers across the stars. A new era of worker protection had begun.